Perfect, perfect. All right, so given the all the activities happening with the system and the pace that we're moving, I kind of streamlined it a little bit. I used to break it out on a per regional basis. Instead, I'm going to look at statewide at this point because now we're going to focus on the stuff that remains to be done instead of all the stuff that's been done. So as I've said before, we have all of the blue dots representing all the sites that we're tracking. This graph represents where we are actually today. So as I mentioned last time, red is good. So everything that's red is powered and completed. All the solid greens are sites that are completed, but we don't have power yet. And then all of the rotating greens are sites that have active builds. As you can see here, all of these yellow boxes are all the lease sites, and then these triangles are the IPTV sites. So in Region 1, that refers to the Calhoun site, which is a lease site, and the Hardin site, which is a new build. And that is, Hardin is the site that's taking us the longest to build. It's a lot of challenges there, but we're definitely moving forward. For the Region 2, it's we have the KTIN Fort Dodge site, which is an IPTV site, and the Chickasaw site, which is a build on a lease site. Again, the difference there is that we're not building a tower, we're dropping off the shelter and the generator. And I'll show you a little bit what some of the challenges that we've had. For Region 3, it's the Rock Rapids site, which we haven't started yet. We're looking at most likely we're right now about 90% that we're just going to build a new tower for Rock Rapids. So we've been visiting that site a couple of times to understand the challenges of building a parallel site and then tearing down the existing site. So we're working with IPTV on figuring out the logistics of doing that. And right now, like I said, 90%, unless something comes up, 90% likely that we're going to build a brand new site. Region 4 we skipped over because we're done. Region 5 is the Davis site, which is a lease site, and the Keosauqua, which is an IPTV site. Again, we've done the civil work. We have the sites ready. We don't have power in those sites yet. And last, Region 6 are two sites, the Cedar Falls Dispatch and the Dubuque site, which is a lease site. Again, the solid greens meaning that there is no power, and the reason there's no power has nothing to do with the civil, it has to do with the administrative action of signing up the state for the power and all that kind of stuff. We've had the challenge for every single site, so it's no surprise here. It's not necessarily a problem, it's just that it takes time to do all that stuff. All right, so referring to, let's see, Chickasaw, which is here in Region 2, as you can see, all of the lease sites are done, except with Calhoun, which we just started, and then Chickasaw. Chickasaw, we actually were supposed to be done 2 weeks ago, but it just won't stop raining. So here's an example of a challenge that we find in the Chickasaw site, right? We have heavy duty equipment that sinks when the ground gets soft, and even though we've poured tons of rock and stone to reinforce it, it's still a challenge. So we actually had the shelter and the generator there waiting to set up the crane so we can actually drop it in place, and we had to send all that stuff back because we didn't want the stuff to be sideways in the middle of a cornfield. In terms of in Hardin, again, Hardin, the tower is actually now built. What we have to complete now is the dropping off of the shelter and the generator and the LP tank. Again, it's a steep climb into where that particular site is. So whereas the tower, we were able to pull things bits and by pieces, and we had two different cranes, medium size and then a large crane. But again, it's all based on what the weather is doing. So we've had many times where we've had to cancel the crane because it just won't stop raining, or when it rains, it'll take a couple of days to dry out, and then it'll rain again. So it's been kind of a challenge. So it's been the longest site that's taken us to build, but we got to do it little by little. The road conditions are very challenging, very small roads in the area. You can only get to the site one particular direction. There's bridges that we have to avoid. And again, the placement of the tower and the shelter is at a steep incline up in the hill, so it's challenging. So we just gotta do it right and very carefully. All right. So that brings us to these numbers here. So I kind of cut some of the additional stuff off of this chart. So out of all the sites, we've only had one that's not started, which is a Rock Rapids site. We have 4 that are active civils. Again, nothing that's going to keep us from getting this thing completed. They're just slow. And then we have 6 that are waiting for power, which is, again, just a matter of getting all the paperwork signed and assigned and the power company to get out there and actually do what they need to do. So overall, it's looking very good. Right now, this is what our coverage footprint looks like with the sites that have been rechannelized. So this doesn't represent all the sites. This shows all the sites that we've actually retuned the combiners at all the sites, so you can see what the coverage footprint looks like. The green is a mobile, and the orange is portable coverage. In terms of coverage testing, this graph looks a lot more busier than we did last time. We only had 5 counties. So we're getting up there and approaching 30 sites of 30 counties ready for coverage testing. We've actually started testing. We're targeting 5. We completed Guthrie County and Jasper, which I show here in green. And then 3 orange are active. As a matter of fact, I believe Lynn was finished last night. PowerShake is going to be finished tomorrow, and so will Iowa as well. So we're getting busy. We have moved forward. We still are waiting. Well, actually, I'll talk a little bit about the frequency coordination. But we decided to move forward with this so we can keep on track and try to test as much as possible. What we've done is we created these not mag mounts, but magnetic stickers. So we got rental cars, sedans, and we have produced 10 of these pair of stickers, vehicles 1 through 10. So here's an example of our first vehicle, number 1. It has the phone number for dispatch, so that if people call, they'll be calling to DPS dispatch to report strange folks driving around all over the place. Here's an example. You can see the computer sitting in here. And then we've also made bumper stickers in the back, which has, again, the same phone number, so that we want to make it clear so that people are concerned. It's all marked and clear so that they can go ahead and make a call, so they feel reassured that we're not doing nothing that we're not supposed to. Here's another vehicle. This is, you can see the mag mount antenna here in the top, and the sticker in the back, and this is coverage test vehicle number 2. So we want to make them very specific so that if people call in, they can say it's vehicle number 2 or number 1, and then we can pair that up to whoever is out there. It makes it easier for us to figure out what they're calling about. All right, so here's an example of Guthrie County. Every dot in that county represents a test point in the county. So overall, here's some useful facts. We had 1,014 test tiles that were enabled for that particular county. 9% were not accessible. So 921 of those were tested. All of the tested tiles passed. Some of these we try, but like you can see here, these 3 tiles, for example, were just not accessible. A lot of farm fields out there, a lot of roads that are dirt roads that we've actually ventured to go into a couple of them and got stuck, so we pulled out. I had folks calling me late at night saying, should I call a tow truck? I said, well, were you in a mud road? Maybe you shouldn't have been in there. Tow trucks actually don't want to go out there either. So they've had to muscle their way out of some of those fields. So we kind of calibrated the team to make sure that if the sign, because we've actually seen the sign that says minimally maintain roads, enter at your own risk, that should be a clue as to not to go in there. I've been in some of these as well. As long as there's gravel, gravel is the minimum requirement for us. And some of these things start with gravel and then the gravel disappears. And if you're not paying attention, you find it on these roads. And what you see is the trees start kind of getting into the road, and then you realize, oh, I must have missed the sign or I didn't see it or something, so you kind of back out of there as quickly as we can. We haven't had any incidents, a lot of stairs, but when we drive by, we've actually seen people who will actually pull their trucks. It's almost like they see a car, so they'll pull their trucks, come out to the porch, looking in you to see what you're doing. We've had people that pull their trucks up to the driveway and wait for you to pass, and once they see the sign on the side, we haven't had really any incidents. So that's what really makes all the difference. So this is just an example of one of the counties. So you can see all the test points that are scattered throughout there. All right, so overall, we're building. We have 4 active build sites and one that's going to start soon, hopefully, which is the Rock Rapids site. We already have identified the tower. We got the quote for it and everything. We're just waiting to hit the trigger. The microwave path alignments, that's going to continue, and that keeps on moving forward. A lot of work there. We're actually increasing the number of teams so that we can try to hurry up this process because it's been challenging. If it's not the rain, it's the wind. So it's sort of a catch-22. So we're trying to bring in more crews so we can make up for the slack in the schedule. We've integrated the DPS dispatch centers. That's something we're about 90% on that right now. And that's important because we're working for getting ready for DPS dispatch training, which starts next week. Those are the State Patrol dispatch centers that are scattered throughout the state. So we continue to re-optimize the sites. This is the whole 700 megahertz channel concurrence situation. And the last exclamation mark here is that we just received notice from Illinois that they are not concurring with our frequency plan. So we're trying to figure out what that means and what we can do. We certainly have a couple of things in mind. All I can say is it's going to get interesting. But we're going to continue coverage testing with the intent of not changing the channel plans. So we got to go back and look at the rules, which we understand, but we need to make sure that our neighbors understand the rules as well and what our standing is with what we're doing and why. We've actually taken a smart approach with the frequency channel plan. So none of our frequencies that are being used right now interfere with any of the frequencies that they're using. The mindset is more like, well, 10 years from now, we're going to do something, and we might use that frequency, and you're going to be interfering with us. So it's one of those interesting things that we're dealing with right now. But other than that, we're busy. Yes?
Should I push it again? So with the Illinois issue, with the frequency plan, who over there at the RPC is rejecting it?
I don't remember the name off the top of my head. I have my engineers working on it, and the state PM is working on with that. He's been the one that's been dealing with all the emails and the paperwork. But I just got an email this morning from the engineer indicating that there was a negative concurrence on that.
So the commission, I know a lot about the commission, doesn't allow them to channel hoard like they're doing. By what I'm saying is they don't allow them to speculate on the future.
Correct.
So have you talked to APCO?
That's what I'm saying is I just got notice this morning. So we're gonna come up with a plan on dealing with this, but the intent is not to change because we've done everything feasibly to be good neighbors in terms of the design approach and the contour requirements. So we know exactly what they're using today because it's Illinois and it's Motorola. So we've adjusted our design to fit that.
Have you guys made any phone calls to like Michael Wilhelm at the commission or Jeannie Benefeta?
So the state PM is spearheading that. That's his responsibility. So I don't know who he's contacted.
Would it help if somebody from the ISICS board, talked to somebody?
At this point, I think between Craig Allen and I believe he's made use of Tom Lampy with letterhead and whatnot to approach them. So I think with Craig Allen being out this week on vacation, he'll come back next week. That I think we're going to start rolling on that and just finish it up.
Go ahead.
Yes.
One comment on Illinois' apparent issue with our channel plan. My understanding from my involvement with this is that our channel plan is more or less very similar to what Missouri has. So in theory, if they have a problem with us, they also have a problem with Missouri because Missouri already has existing 700 infrastructure as well. Candidly speaking, I don't think they have much of an argument now because there's two states that more or less have a very similar channel plan. So in theory, I think the best thing to approach them with perhaps would be, all right, let's establish a regional channel plan now since we've got two states basically doing the same thing. That might make them rethink their position a little bit as well.
Because we are smart about the approach that we've taken, again, this is why it's going to get interesting. I can't say too much, but we could take right now the same stance and identify specific sites that actually encroach on Iowa. And we can demand that they turn them down or rechannelize. So it's going to be a combination of addressing the facts and making sure they understand the rules, like you were saying. We don't believe they really have a leg to stand on. It's more of a process that we have to go through.
So it's only a 3-mile border around the state. We're not going outside the 3-mile border on the contours, correct?
Correct. We just have to meet it's the 40 dB mu contour.
Right.
And I think.
But if they don't have a channel up, then there's no way to meet a 40 dB contour if you're staying within the 3-mile border.
Correct. But they actually spray into Iowa beyond the 3-mile contour.
Yeah, but not on co-channels.
Correct.
So you do know you can go straight to the commission and go around the RPC.
Correct.
Okay.
It's just a process that we need to go through before creating
I understand.
Unnecessary tensions.
How long has this been in the process?
We've been, I want to say about 3 months.
So if they don't concur, then is all the channels already programmed up there?
Correct.
So if they don't concur, then it's a ripple effect all across the state.
Correct.
Because you'll have to
which we've already done once.
Yeah.
And then we did a second time for specific sites, which is why we don't really want to do this again.
Got a quick question.
Yes.
The seasons are close to changing. I'm wondering about the foliage and how that impacts the coverage testing, and if there is a need to either delay or to come back and do it again next spring if in fact we lose leaves. And I'm not sure exactly. I don't think I was on the board when the standards were put in place, but I assume there's some
Sure.
time of the year that it's
So,
acceptable.
so our preferred approach is to do it when foliage is there. But for reasons outside of our control, we hadn't really started for obviously these kinds of reasons because if we had to restart coverage testing, it'd be expensive and a lengthy process, a lot of wasted resources. So we're expecting 10 teams right now. We're running a small startup just to make sure we kind of sync up with the process. We're going to have 10 teams. The foliage, testing with foliage is not an RFP requirement, but we're trying to do it because we prefer to verify it that way. So I think we're going to be going into October, between now and October, to be able to do this, assuming that we don't have to change anything with Illinois, which I would say right now it's about 90% we won't.
Thank you.
Melvin, you had mentioned maybe last meeting or meeting before that we were still looking at a November time frame. And I had asked a couple months ago, and I think you might have misinterpreted. But my question is when is it going to all work together? Not when you give it to us. When is all of these sites going to work together?
We're still looking at, unless anything changes, right now, we've had the challenges with setting up the microwave paths. But unless everything changes, we believe that by the end of November, we'll be done. We got a lot of cleanup work to do. We have, right now, we have quality teams that are going throughout the sites and making sure things have been picked up, excess material has been removed. We're making sure that the lighting systems are working right. So there's a lot of cleanup work that needs to take place. But with the training happening with State Patrol right now, we see them transitioning in October to start using the dispatch centers that are connected to ISICS and still have the ability to dispatch all of the conventional channels. So it's sort of a work in progress, but we're still looking at the end of November to getting that done. Sure. Yes.
What is the distance between your two testing points from point to point
Testing points, can you
on
be
your
more
map
specific?
or your grid?
Oh, the grids
On your tiles.
The grids are 3/4 mile test grids. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay.
And then also I have another question. You mentioned that you guys are doing rental cars. Why are you guys doing rental cars?
We're doing rental cars for a simple reason that we want to have maximum flexibility. Right now, we start a team at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they can go 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. That's difficult to do with state resources or county resources because, quite frankly, they'll slow us down if we got to wait for somebody to work from 8 to 5. And then there's the overtime requirements for those entities.
You mentioned you had 10 teams working now.
No, we will have 10 teams. We have 10 test kits. Right now, we started more on a limited, so we tested the capital area, and then we targeting those 5 counties, 2 of which are done, and the other 3 which will be done this week.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Melvin? Very good dialogue. Thank you, Melvin.
All right.